Minho checked his datapad one more time as he walked through the bright corridors of Station Osiris-7. The message was clear. Guard duty for the Velrathi delegation during peace talks. Simple enough. He had done protection work for 5 years now, ever since leaving Earth. Different species, different problems, but the job was always the same. Keep people safe. Don't ask questions. The station floated in neutral space halfway between human and Velrathi territories. It was massive, big enough to hold thousands of diplomats, soldiers, and workers. The walls gleamed white and silver. Everything felt cold and official. A Velrathi officer met him at the delegation quarters. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with gray-blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Her eyes were completely black, no whites at all. She wore armor that looked both decorative and functional, with symbols Minho didn't recognize. You are the human contractor. Her voice was deep, musical in a way that human voices never were. Yes, Minho Park. I'm here for guard duty. She looked him up and down. Her expression was hard to read. Follow me. They walked through several checkpoints. Velrathi guards watched him pass. Some looked curious. Others looked dismissive. Minho was used to it. Humans weren't particularly impressive compared to most alien species. Average height, average strength, no special abilities. Just stubborn and hard to kill. The officer stopped at a large door. Your assignment is not what you think. What do you mean? You are not guarding the delegation. You are guarding her. She opened the door. Inside was a room that looked like it had been hit by a tornado. Furniture was overturned. Toys were scattered everywhere. Scorch marks decorated one wall. In the center of the chaos sat a small figure. The child was tiny compared to adult Velrathi, maybe 3 feet tall. She had the same gray-blue skin, the same black eyes, but her features were softer, rounder. She was playing with something that looked like building blocks, stacking them carefully. This is Lyra, the officer said quietly. Daughter of High Commander Kaiva, she is 4 solar cycles old. Minho stared. I'm babysitting? You are protecting the heir to the Velrathi Fleet Command. The officer's voice went hard. 18 guards have tried. None lasted more than 3 days. The child is difficult. As if on cue, Lyra looked up, her black eyes fixed on Minho. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the building blocks exploded outward like shrapnel. Minho ducked instinctively. The blocks hit the walls, the ceiling, everywhere except where he stood. Psychic abilities, the officer explained unnecessarily. Velrathi young developed them early. They cannot always control them. Great. Minho straightened up. Anything else I should know? High Commander Kaiva will meet you soon. You have 3 days to prove you can handle this. The officer turned to leave. Most guards quit on the first day. Good luck, human. The door closed. Minho was alone with Lyra. The child watched him carefully. She didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared with those endless black eyes. Minho had dealt with difficult people before. Drunk diplomats, paranoid politicians, scared refugees. Kids couldn't be that different, right? He pulled a chair from the wreckage, turned it upright, and sat down. Not too close to Lyra, not too far. Just present, hi, he said simply. I'm Minho. Lyra tilted her head. Still silent. I'm going to be staying with you for a while. He kept his voice calm, neutral. I'm not here to make you do anything. Just here to keep you safe. The child's eyes narrowed. Then she opened her mouth and screamed. It wasn't a normal scream. Minho felt it in his bones and his teeth behind his eyes. The lights flickered. His datapad sparked and went dark. The door control panel flashed red. Every electronic device in the room died at once. The sound was physically painful. Minho's ears rang. His head pounded. But he didn't move. Didn't run. Didn't shout back. He just sat there waiting. Lyra screamed for a full minute. When she finally stopped, she was breathing hard. Her small chest heaved. She looked at Minho like she expected him to leave, to give up like all the others. Minho reached into his jacket and pulled out a water bottle. His ears were still ringing, but he kept his movements slow and calm. He opened the bottle, took a sip, then set it on the floor between them. That was loud, he said conversationally. You must be tired. Lyra stared at him. Then at the water bottle. Then back at him. They sat in silence for a long time. Minho didn't push, didn't demand anything. He just existed in the space with her, comfortable with the quiet. Finally, Lyra moved. She crawled forward slowly, watching Minho the whole time. She grabbed the water bottle with both small hands and drank. Water spilled down her chin. She didn't seem to care. When she finished, she set the bottle down. You didn't leave. Her voice was high, childish, but clear. She spoke perfect standard language. No, Minho agreed. I didn't. Why not? Because I said I'd stay. He shrugged. I keep my promises. Lyra studied him for another long moment. Then she went back to her building blocks. She began stacking them again, this time without making them explode. Minho noticed that despite her young age, her movements were precise, careful. She was building something specific, a tower with intricate patterns. That's pretty, he offered. It's the command ship, Lyra said without looking up. Mother's ship. The Velkorath? Your mother is the High Commander? Yes, Lyra added another block. She's very important, very busy. Something in the child's tone made Minho's chest tighten. He recognized loneliness when he heard it. I bet she is. Running a whole fleet must be hard work. She says I need to be strong, like her. Lyra's hands paused. But I'm not. I'm too loud, too hard to control. You're 4, Minho said gently. You're supposed to be learning. Not perfect, Lyra looked at him again. This time her expression was different. Confused, maybe. Or curious. Before either could speak again, the door opened. A woman entered, and Minho knew immediately who she was. High Commander Kaiva was impressive. Tall, powerful, wearing armor that gleamed like starlight. Her face was beautiful in an alien way, all sharp angles and smooth planes. But her eyes were what caught Minho's attention. They held the weight of command, of responsibility, of countless decisions made in the dark of space. She looked at her daughter, then at Minho, then at the calm scene before her, so different from the chaos she usually found. You are still here, she said. It wasn't quite a question. Yes, Commander. Minho stood, showing respect without showing fear. Kaiva's eyes narrowed. We will see if you last. She turned to leave, then paused. Guard her well, human. She is precious beyond measure. Then she was gone. The door closed again. Lyra went back to her blocks. But Minho noticed something. The child's shoulders had relaxed slightly when her mother spoke those last words. Like she needed to hear them, even if they came with duty and expectation. Minho sat back down. This job was going to be more complicated than he thought. But as he watched Lyra carefully add another piece to her tower, he felt something unexpected. Determination. This child needed someone, and Minho was good at being someone others could rely on. 3 days? He'd see about that. 3 weeks passed. Minho was still there. The other Velrothi guards had stopped looking surprised. Now they looked curious instead. Some even nodded to him in the corridors. A human lasting this long with Lyra was apparently newsworthy. Minho had learned a lot in those weeks. He learned that Lyra woke up at exactly the same time every morning, when the station lights shifted from night cycle to day cycle. He learned that she hated the standard Velrothi nutrition paste and would throw it across the room if forced to eat it. He learned that her psychic powers surged when she was frustrated, scared, or overwhelmed, and that yelling at her only made it worse. Most importantly, he learned that she was just a kid. A lonely, confused kid with abilities she didn't understand and parents who were too busy saving the galaxy to save her from herself. Today, Lyra was sitting on the floor, her face scrunched up in concentration. Small objects around the room trembled as she tried to move them with her mind. A toy ship lifted an inch off the ground, wobbled, then crashed back down. Stupid, Lyra shouted. The lights flickered. Minho looked up from his datapad. What's stupid? Me, I can't do it right. She glared at the toy ship. Mother could move 10 ships when she was my age. I can barely lift one toy. Your mother told you that? Other people told me. They say I'm weak for a Velrothi. Lyra's voice went small. They say I'm broken. Minho felt anger flash through him. He set down his datapad and moved to sit next to her. Can I tell you something about humans? Lyra looked at him suspiciously. What? We can't move things with our minds at all. Not when we're 4. Not when we're 40. Not ever. He picked up the toy ship. But we still made it to the stars. You know how? How? We used our hands, our brains, our tools. He held out the ship. We couldn't lift things with psychic power, so we built machines to do it instead. We couldn't read minds, so we learned to talk, to listen, to understand each other in different ways. Lyra took the ship from him, turning it over in her small hands. But Velrothi are supposed to be strong, powerful, You are strong, Minho said firmly. You're 4 years old and you're already learning to control abilities that would make most humans' heads explode. That's pretty amazing. Really? Really? He smiled. Want to know a secret? Being powerful isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about not giving up when things are hard. Lyra thought about this. Then she set the ship down and tried again. This time it lifted smoother, steadier. It wobbled less. When she set it down, she looked at Minho with something like hope in her black eyes. Better? She asked. Much better. That became their pattern. Minho didn't push Lyra to be perfect. He just encouraged her to try, to learn, to be patient with herself. When her powers surged and things started breaking, he showed her breathing techniques he'd learned in his own training. Deep breath in, slow breath out. Focus on something steady. A heartbeat, a rhythm, a voice. His voice, usually. He also started telling her stories. Velrothi didn't really have stories the way humans did. Their history was recorded fact. Their entertainment was strategic simulations. But humans love stories. Tales of adventure, of heroes, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Lyra loved them too. Tell me about the ocean again, she said one evening. They were sitting together near the window that showed the stars outside. Which part? All of it, Minho smiled. Okay. So Earth has these massive bodies of water called oceans. They're so big you can't see across them. The water is salty and blue, and it moves in waves that crash on the shore. What's a shore? It's where the land meets the water. Sand and rocks and sometimes cliffs. He pulled up images on his datapad showing her pictures of Earth's beaches. And in the oceans live millions of creatures. Fish, whales, dolphins, sharks, octopi. Lyra stared at the images with wonder. Belrath has no oceans. Only dry land and cities. Every world is different. That's what makes the galaxy interesting. I want to see an ocean someday, Lyra said quietly. A real one. Maybe you will. You're the daughter of a high commander. You'll probably visit lots of worlds. Lyra leaned against his side. It was the first time she'd really touched him voluntarily. Will you come with me? The question caught Minho off guard. He looked down at the small alien child pressed against him, trusting him in a way she apparently didn't trust anyone else. If I can, sure. Promise? He thought about promises, about duty, about the fact that his contract here was temporary. But looking at Lyra's hopeful face, he couldn't bring himself to add more disappointment to her young life. I promise I'll try. That seemed to be enough. Lyra smiled. Really smiled for the first time since Minho had met her. The next day, something happened that changed everything. Station Osiris-7 was attacked. Not by enemy forces, but by a group of extremists who opposed the peace talks. Alarms blared through the corridors. Automated defenses activated. The whole station went into lockdown. In Lyra's quarters, the emergency lights cast everything in red. The child woke from her nap screaming, her psychic abilities spiking out of control. Objects flew around the room. The walls groaned. Minho could feel pressure building in his skull like his brain was being squeezed. Lyra. He tried to reach her, but invisible force pushed him back. Lyra, you need to calm down. She couldn't hear him. Her eyes were wide with terror, unfocused. Her scream wasn't sound anymore, it was pure psychic energy, tearing at the fabric of the room itself. Other guards would have sedated her by now. Protocol demanded it. Knock her out before she hurt herself or others. Minho didn't follow protocol. He pushed forward, fighting through the psychic pressure. Each step felt like walking through concrete. His nose started bleeding. His vision blurred. But he kept going until he reached Lyra and wrapped his arms around her small, trembling body. The psychic energy hit him directly. It felt like being electrocuted and frozen and burned all at once. Every nerve in his body screamed. But he held on. It's okay, he said through gritted teeth. I've got you. You're safe. Scared? Lyra sobbed against his chest. Everything's loud. Too loud? I know it's scary. His voice shook but stayed steady. But you're not alone. I'm here. I'm right here. Don't leave. I won't leave. I promise. He started humming, a simple tune his mother had sung to him when he was young. He didn't know if it would work, but he had to try something. Slowly, incredibly slowly, Lyra's psychic surge began to calm. The pressure eased. Objects stopped flying. The screaming became crying, normal crying. The sound of a frightened child rather than a psychic storm. Minho kept holding her, kept humming, even as his body shook from the strain. He felt something warm running from his ears. More blood. His head felt like it might split open. But Lyra was calming down. That was all that mattered. By the time the emergency ended and Velrothi guards burst into the room, Lyra was quiet in Minho's arms. But Minho himself was barely conscious. The psychic strain had done serious damage to his nervous system. "Get medical," someone shouted. "The human is injured." They tried to take Lyra from him. She screamed again, her powers flaring. "No! No, don't take him! Minho! Minho forced his eyes open. "It's okay, Lyra, let them help me. I'll be fine, promise." Even barely conscious, he managed to smile. "Promise." They carried him to medical. The last thing he heard before passing out was Lyra crying his name. When he woke up 3 days later, his head felt like it had been put through a grinder. Everything hurt. The lights were too bright. Sounds were too loud, but there was a weight on his chest. A small warm weight. Minho looked down. Lyra was curled up on him, fast asleep. Her small hand clutched his hospital gown. A Velrothi doctor stood nearby. "She refused to leave," the doctor said quietly. High Commander Kaiva herself could not convince her to go. "So we allowed her to stay." "How long?" 3 days. "She has barely eaten, barely slept, just waited for you to wake." The doctor's black eyes studied him. "What you did was foolish. Letting a psychic surge hit you unshielded could have killed you. But it didn't. No, it didn't." The doctor's expression was unreadable. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human." "Probably both," Minho admitted. He looked down at Lyra again. She stirred in her sleep, mumbling something that sounded like his name. His hand moved almost automatically to rest on her back, protective and gentle. Outside the medical bay window, he saw a familiar figure. High Commander Kaiva stood watching them. Her face was impassive, but her eyes held something new. Respect. Recovery took 2 weeks. Minho's nervous system had to heal from the psychic damage. The doctor said he was lucky. A full-grown Velrothi warrior taking that kind of hit would have been fine. A human should have died or suffered permanent brain damage. But Minho healed. Slowly, but he healed. Lyra visited every day. She brought him drawings of Earth oceans she'd tried to create from his descriptions. They weren't very good, but Minho hung them on the wall next to his bed anyway. She also practiced her psychic control, showing him how she could now lift 3 toy ships at once instead of 1. "See? She made them orbit around each other. I've been practicing like you said." "That's amazing, Lyra." And it was. Her improvement in just 2 weeks was remarkable. What Minho didn't expect was High Commander Kaiva. She started appearing at odd times. First to check on his recovery, which made sense. Then to discuss Lyra's progress, which also made sense. But then she came just to talk. About strategy, about the peace talks, about the differences between human and Velrothi culture. Those conversations surprised him. "Your species is strange," Kaiva said one evening. She stood by the window of his medical room, looking out at the stars. "You are weak by every measurable standard, yet you thrive." "We're stubborn," Minho said from his bed. He was sitting up now, much stronger. "And we adapt. Give a human a problem and they'll find 17 different solutions, half of them crazy." "Crazy." Kaiva turned to look at him. "Yes, that is accurate. What you did during the emergency was crazy. No Velrothi guard would have done it. They would have sedated her. Yes, it is protocol. It is safe. It protects both the child and those around her." Kaiva's expression was hard to read. "You could have died." But Lyra would have been terrified and alone. Minho met her black eyes steadily. She needed someone to hold her, not someone to drug her unconscious. Kaiva was silent for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a quiet sound, almost rusty, like she didn't do it often. "My advisors think you are insane. My guards think you are some kind of human anomaly. But my daughter thinks you are the best person in the galaxy." She moved closer to his bed. "What do you think you are, Minho Park?" He considered the question seriously. "Just someone trying to do right by a kid who deserves better than she's been getting. She is the heir to the Velrothi Fleet Command. She has the best of everything. She has stuff," Minho corrected gently. "Toys, tutors, guards. But what she needs is someone who sees her as Lyra, not as the heir, someone who doesn't care if she's perfect." Kaiva's face shifted. For just a moment she looked vulnerable. "I am her mother. I care for her. I know you do. But you're also the High Commander. You have a whole fleet depending on you, peace talks to manage, a war to end." Minho kept his voice soft. "I'm not judging you. I can't imagine that kind of pressure. I'm just saying that Lyra needs someone whose only job is to be there for her. That is what the guards were for. Guards see a duty. I see a kid. He shrugged. Maybe that's the human in me. Kaiva studied him with those endless black eyes. You are unlike anyone I have met, human. You have no psychic abilities, no enhanced strength, no natural weapons. Yet you face down a psychic storm that should have killed you. For a child that is not even your species. She's a child. That's all that matters. Something changed in Kaiva's expression then. Minho couldn't name it, but it felt important. Tell me about human families, she said suddenly. The request surprised him. What do you want to know? Everything. How they form. How they function. Velrothi families are simple. A bonded pair produces offspring. The strongest parent raises the child to be strong. Bloodlines are tracked carefully. Duty is everything. She sat in the chair next to his bed, but human families seem more complicated. So Minho talked. He told her about his own childhood, about his mother who raised him alone after his father died. About how humans formed families through blood, through marriage, through adoption, through simple choice. About how humans could love people who weren't related to them, who didn't even look like them. Kaiva listened with intense focus.
So a human can claim another as family through action rather than blood.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Found family, we call it. Found family, Kaiva repeated slowly. She seemed to be thinking about something deep. Velrothi have something similar. The claiming. When a warrior proves themselves worthy to protect a child, the parent can claim them as guardian. They become part of the family unit. It is a great honor. Sounds nice. It has never been done across species. Kaiva looked at him directly. The genetic differences, the cultural barriers, the political complications. It would be unprecedented. Minho felt something shift in the conversation, though he wasn't sure what. Yeah, I imagine it would be complicated. Before Kaiva could respond, Lyra burst into the room. She ran straight to Minho's bed, her face bright with excitement. Minho, the doctors say you can leave tomorrow. You can come back to our quarters. Our quarters? Minho smiled at her enthusiasm. Well, my quarters. But you're there all the time, so they're our quarters now. She climbed onto the bed next to him. I've been planning things we can do. I want to show you the observation deck. And the garden level. And there's a human restaurant on level 17. Can we go there, please? If your mother says it's okay. Both of them looked at Kaiva. The High Commander watched them together, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded slowly. Yes, when Minho is fully recovered, we will go together. All three of us. Lyra's face lit up. Really? You'll come too, Mother? Yes, Kaiva's voice softened slightly. I would like to see this human restaurant. And spend time with my daughter. Her eyes flicked to Minho. And the human who guards her so well. Over the next weeks, something unexpected happened. Kaiva started making time, between meetings, between strategy sessions, between the countless duties of a high commander. She found moments to be with Lyra, and Minho was always there too. They visited the observation deck, where Lyra pressed her face against the glass and stared at the stars. They went to the garden level, where Lyra was fascinated by earth plants growing in alien soil. They ate at the human restaurant, where Kaiva tried pizza for the first time and declared it strategically efficient food. Minho watched Kaiva with her daughter during these outings. He saw how she softened when Lyra laughed, how she listened carefully when Lyra chattered about her day, how she looked at Minho sometimes, her expression thoughtful, almost confused. One evening, after Lyra had fallen asleep, Kaiva asked to speak with Minho privately. They stood in the corridor outside Lyra's quarters, the station quiet around them. She has changed, Kaiva said quietly. My daughter. In the months you have been here, she has become happier, more confident. Her abilities are more controlled. She's a smart kid. She just needed someone to believe in her. You believe in her? Of course I do. Kaiva turned to face him fully. In the dim corridor light, she looked different from the commanding warrior he'd first met. More human somehow, though that wasn't quite the right word. I find myself thinking about you often, she admitted. About your species. About how you approach problems so differently from us. We Velrothi value strength, power, direct action. But you showed me that patience can be stronger than force. That gentleness can be more powerful than aggression. Minho felt heat rise in his face. Was she saying what he thought she was saying? Lyra calls you her human, Kaiva continued. She tells everyone about you, about your stories, your patience, your kindness. She feels safe with you in a way she has never felt safe before. I care about her, Minho said simply. A lot, I know you do. I see it in how you look at her, how you protect her without smothering her, how you make her laugh. Kaiva stepped closer. You are good for her, Minho Park, perhaps good for us both. Us? I am beginning to understand why humans form bonds across bloodlines, why choice can be as strong as genetics. Her black eyes searched his face. You are not Velrothi. You are not even slightly similar to my species. But when I watch you with my daughter, when I speak with you about strategy and culture and the future, I find myself thinking that differences might not be weaknesses. They might be strengths. Minho's heart was beating fast.
Commander Kaiva, just Kaiva, she interrupted.
When we are alone, you may call me just Kaiva. Kaiva, he said slowly. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I do not know what I am saying yet, she admitted. Only that you matter. To Lyra, certainly, but perhaps to me as well. Before Minho could respond, an alarm chimed. Kaiva's datapad lit up with urgent messages. I must go, she said. The talks require my attention. But she paused before leaving. Think about what I have said. About family. About bonds. About the possibility of something unprecedented. Then she was gone, leaving Minho standing in the corridor, his mind racing. Inside Lyra's quarters, he could hear the soft sound of the child breathing in sleep. She trusted him completely, depended on him, and her mother, it seemed, was beginning to see him as something more than just a guard. Minho looked out at the stars through a nearby window. His life had always been simple. Take jobs, complete them, move on. But this felt different. This felt like something worth staying for. The challenge came during a formal dinner 2 weeks later. Minho stood at the back of the ceremonial hall, watching Velrothi dignitaries eat and discuss politics. He wasn't part of the dinner, just there to keep an eye on Lyra, who sat beside her mother at the high table. The child looked bored, pushing food around her plate while adults talked about things she didn't understand. A tall Velrothi male stood from his seat. His armor was decorated with battle honors, his bearing military perfect. High Commander Kaiva, I must speak. The room went quiet. Kaiva set down her utensil. Speak, Commander Rith. It has come to my attention that you have allowed a human to serve as primary guardian to your daughter. To the heir of our fleet command, Rith's voice carried across the hall. This is unprecedented and, I must say, inappropriate. Murmurs rippled through the gathered Velrothi. Kaiva's expression didn't change. Minho Park has proven himself capable. My daughter trusts him. A child's trust is not the measure of a guardian's worth. Wraith turned to look directly at Minho. No disrespect to the human, but he lacks every qualification. He has no psychic abilities to understand the child's needs, no warrior training to protect her in battle, no knowledge of Velrothi customs to guide her properly. Minho stayed quiet. This wasn't his fight. Not yet. What do you propose? Kaiva asked, her voice dangerously calm. The Velkarash. Rith smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. The ancient trial. If this human truly deserves to guard the heir, let him prove it in the traditional way. The murmurs got louder. Minho saw several Velrothi exchange glances. Whatever this trial was, it wasn't good. Lyra looked scared. She turned to her mother. Mother, what's the Velkarash? Kaiva's jaw tightened. It is an old ritual. 3 challenges to prove a guardian's worth. She looked at Rith coldly. It has not been used in generations. Because we have not needed it. Our guardians are always Velrothi, always proven warriors. Rith gestured broadly. But now we have this situation. An alien guarding our future leader. Surely the trial is appropriate. The Velkarash is dangerous, another Velrothi said. It was designed for our kind. A human would not survive. Then perhaps he should not be guarding the heir, Rith said smoothly. Minho saw the trap clearly. If he refused, it looked like he was afraid, unworthy. If he accepted, he'd probably die trying. Either way, Rith won. Before Kaiva could respond, Minho stepped forward. I accept. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at him. Minho, no, Lyra said, her voice small. You don't have to do this, Kaiva said quietly. Her eyes held a warning. Yeah, I do. Minho looked at Rith. You're questioning whether I can protect Lyra. The only way to settle that is to prove it. Rith's smile widened. Excellent. The trial begins tomorrow. That night, Kaiva came to Minho's quarters. Lyra was asleep in her room, so they spoke in hushed voices. You should not have accepted, Kaiva said. She looked worried, which on her usually composed face was startling. The Velkarash was designed to test Velrothi warriors at their peak. You are human. You will be at a severe disadvantage. Tell me about the challenges, she sighed. 3 tests. First, the trial of protection. You must keep Lyra safe while navigating a hostile environment. Second, the trial of mind. You must resist psychic manipulation while maintaining Lyra's trust. Third, the trial of sacrifice. You must choose between your safety and hers. Doesn't sound too bad. Minho. She grabbed his arm. Her grip was strong, almost painful. Velrothi have died in this trial. Warriors far stronger than you. But humans are tricky, Minho said with more confidence than he felt. We don't win by being strongest. We win by being smartest. I cannot help you during the trial. It is forbidden. I must only watch. Her voice went quiet. I will have to watch you face danger, possibly die and do nothing. He looked at her face, saw real fear there. Hey, I'll be okay. You cannot know that. No, he admitted. But I know I won't quit, and I know I'll do everything I can to keep Lyra safe. That's all I can promise. Kaiva stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something completely unexpected. She pulled him into an embrace. Velrothi didn't hug as far as Minho knew, but her arms wrapped around him strong and warm. Come back alive, she whispered. Both of you. The first trial began in a simulation chamber that could recreate any environment. When Minho and Lyra entered, the room transformed into a hostile jungle. The air became hot and humid. Strange plants grew from the walls. Sounds of dangerous creatures echoed from the shadows. Minho? Lyra pressed close to him. I'm scared. I know. Stay close to me. He scanned the environment. The trial required them to reach the other side of the chamber. Simple, except for whatever dangers waited between here and there. The first attack came fast. A simulated predator, all teeth and claws, lunged from the undergrowth. Minho didn't try to fight it. Instead, he grabbed Lyra and dove sideways, using the terrain to break line of sight. The creature crashed past them. Why didn't you fight it? Lyra asked. Because fighting is the obvious choice. Sometimes running is smarter. He led her through the dense vegetation, using his smaller size to slip through gaps a Velrothi warrior couldn't. The creature followed. But Minho was faster in the tight spaces. They encountered traps, collapsing paths, more creatures. Each time, Minho didn't use strength. He used his brain. He created distractions with thrown rocks. He found hidden paths through careful observation. He kept Lyra calm with quiet encouragement. When they finally reached the exit, both were exhausted but unharmed. The simulation faded. In the observation room above, Minho saw Velrothi witnesses looking surprised. The second trial was harder. Minho was strapped to a chair, unable to move. Lyra stood across from him, also restrained. Between them, a Velrothi psychic warrior began the attack. Minho felt pressure in his mind immediately. Images flooded his thoughts. Lyra crying, Lyra hurt, Lyra scared. The psychic warrior was trying to make Minho believe he had failed her, that she hated him, that he should give up. Minho, Lyra shouted. Don't listen. I'm right here. I'm okay. But the psychic pressure was intense. Minho's vision blurred. The fake images felt so real. He saw Lyra turning away from him, calling him useless, saying she never wanted to see him again. Minho, please. Lyra's real voice cut through the illusions. Remember the ocean. Remember the stories. Remember me. The ocean. Minho focused on that. He thought about the waves he'd described to Lyra, the salt spray, the endless blue. He built a wall in his mind using those images, something real and solid against the psychic attack. That's it, Lyra encouraged. You're doing it. I can feel you fighting. The psychic warrior increased the pressure. Minho's nose bled. His head felt like it would explode. But he held on to those ocean images, held on to Lyra's real voice, held on to the truth underneath the lies. When the trial ended, Minho collapsed in his chair, gasping. But he hadn't broken, hadn't given up. The psychic warrior looked at him with something like respect. The human has a strong mind, the warrior announced. He passes. The third trial was the worst. Minho and Lyra stood in an empty room. No simulation this time, just blank walls and harsh lighting. A Velrothi proctor explained the rules. An energy weapon will fire. It will target either the guardian or the child. Only one will be hit. The guardian must choose who. That's not a choice, Minho said immediately. Target me. Wait, the proctor said. You have not heard the full rules. If you take the hit, you will be severely injured, possibly killed. You will fail the trial and lose your position as guardian. If the child takes the hit, she will be protected by shields. She will be uncomfortable but unharmed. You will pass the trial. Minho stared. You want me to let Lyra get shot to pass a test? The trial measures what you value more. Your duty or your safety? No. Minho stepped in front of Lyra without hesitation. Shoot me. Minho, don't. Lyra grabbed his shirt. I'll be okay. They said I'll be okay. I don't care what they said. He didn't move. I'm not letting you get hurt even a little bit just so I can pass some stupid test. The proctor watched him. You understand you will fail? You will lose everything? I understand that keeping Lyra safe is more important than anything else. So yeah, shoot me. Lyra was crying now. Minho, please. I need you. I need you to stay. I will stay, he said gently. Even if they fire me, even if they kick me off the station, I'll find a way back to you, I promise. The proctor raised his hand. The weapon charged, a high whine filling the room. Lyra screamed. Kaiva's voice cut through the room. Stop! Everyone froze! Kaiva strode into the chamber, her face furious. The trial is complete. Commander, he chose to fail, the proctor protested. He chose to protect my daughter above all else, including his own life and career. That is not failure. Kaiva's voice was ice and fire. That is exactly what a true guardian does. The Velkoresh is complete. He passes. Rith stood in the observation room, his face twisted with anger. That is not how the trial works. I am High Commander. I decide how the trial works. Kaiva's eyes blazed. Minho Park has proven his worth 3 times over. Anyone who questions this can face me in personal combat. The room went silent. Kaiva turned to Minho. He was still standing in front of Lyra, still ready to take a hit that never came. She looked at him with something beyond respect. Something deeper. You may stand down, Guardian, she said softly. You have proven yourself. Minho's legs gave out. He sank to the floor, shaking from adrenaline and relief. Lyra, through Minho, spent 2 days in medical recovery after the trial. Nothing serious, just exhaustion and minor neural strain from the psychic attacks. But those 2 days gave him a lot of time to think. When Kaiva visited on the second evening, he was staring out the window at the stars, lost in thought. You are troubled, she observed, sitting in the chair beside his bed, just thinking. About. Minho turned to face her. About what happens next. I passed the trial. I proved I can protect Lyra. But that doesn't change the fact that eventually this assignment ends. The peace talks will finish. Your delegation will go back to Velrothi space, and I'll move on to the next job. Kaiva was quiet for a moment. Then she said, what if it didn't have to end? What do you mean? There is a Velrothi custom. The claiming, she met his eyes. When a guardian proves themselves truly worthy, when they bond with the child beyond mere duty, the parent can claim them as permanent family. They become the child's recognized guardian, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Like adoption, similar but deeper, the claimed guardian becomes part of the family unit. They are bound not just to the child but to the parent as well. She leaned forward slightly. It is a sacred bond, permanent, unbreakable. Minho's heart started beating faster. Has this ever been done with an alien? No, never. Kaiva's expression was serious. It would be unprecedented, controversial. There would be genetic compatibility treatments required, cultural adjustments, political complications. You would have to leave your human life behind, fully integrate into Velrothi society. That's a lot to ask. Yes, it is. She paused. But I'm asking it nonetheless. Minho Park, I wish to initiate the claiming ceremony. For you to become Lyra's recognized guardian. For you to become part of our family. The words hung in the air between them. Minho felt like he couldn't breathe. You need to understand what this means, Kaiva continued. If you accept, you would undergo genetic treatments to extend your lifespan to match ours. You would take a Velrothi name alongside your human one. You would be bound to me and Lyra for the rest of your life. Bound to you, Minho repeated carefully. What does that mean exactly? Color shifted slightly in Kaiva's gray-blue skin, a Velrothi blush. In our culture, the guardian of a child is considered the parent's chosen mate. If there is no other mate, which there is not, My mate died in battle years ago, so you're asking me to be Lyra's father. And your partner? Yes, she held his gaze. I know this is sudden from a human perspective. You have been here only a few months, but in that time, you have proven yourself in ways I did not know were possible. You have shown me that strength comes in many forms, that love can cross species, that my daughter needs more than a guardian. She needs a father. And you? Minho asked quietly. What do you need? Kaiba's expression softened. I need someone who sees me as more than the High Commander, someone who challenges me, surprises me, makes me think differently, someone who is brave enough to stand up to me when necessary, and gentle enough to comfort a frightened child. She reached out and took his hand. I need you, Minho Park, for my daughter, and for myself. Minho looked down at their hands so different, her skin gray-blue and smooth, his skin brown and scarred, alien and human, warrior and contractor, but somehow it felt right. I need to think about this, he said honestly. This is my whole life you're asking me to change. I know. Take the time you need. She stood to leave, then paused. But know this. Whether you accept or refuse, you have already changed our lives. Lyra loves you, and She stopped, struggling with words. I have feelings I did not expect to have again. After she left, Minho sat in silence. Then he made a call. His friend Taiyang appeared on the screen. They'd worked together for years, knew each other better than most. Taiyang took one look at Minho's face and said, What happened? Minho explained everything. The trial, the offer, the choice he had to make. Taiyang listened without interrupting. When Minho finished, his friend was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Do you love them? I barely know what love means in this context. Forget context. Forget alien, forget human, forget all that. Taiyang leaned closer to the screen. When you think about leaving them, how does it feel? Minho thought about it. About never seeing Lyra smile again, never hearing her excited chatter about oceans and stars, never watching her practice her powers with growing confidence, never seeing Kaiva's rare smiles or having those deep conversations that made him think differently about everything. It feels wrong, he admitted, like I'd be leaving part of myself behind. Then you have your answer. But it's not that simple. I'd be giving up everything. My career, my freedom, my human life. What human life? Taiyang said bluntly. You've been running from job to job for 5 years. No roots, no home, no real connections. You told me once that you never felt like you fit anywhere. He smiled slightly. Maybe you finally found where you fit. After the call, Minho walked to Lyra's quarters. The child was still awake, sitting by the window. Can't sleep? He asked. She shook her head. Mother told me about the claiming. She said you might say no, and if I did, then you'd leave. When the talks end, Lyra's voice was small. Everyone leaves eventually. Minho sat beside her. Is that what you think? That I'd leave? Everyone does. Father died. The guards all quit. Even Mother is always leaving for meetings and battles. She looked at him with those endless black eyes. Why would you be different? Because I promised I'd try to stay. Remember? But trying isn't the same as staying. You're right, Minho took a deep breath. So I'll make you a better promise. If I stay, if I accept the claiming, I stay forever. No leaving. No quitting. I become your guardian, your father for the rest of my life. Lyra's eyes went wide. You mean it? I mean it. But I need to know something first. He looked at her seriously. Is that what you want? Really want? Because this is forever for you too. I want it, Lyra said immediately. I want you to stay. I want you to be my father. I want us to be a real family. Even though I'm human. Even though I'm different? You being different is what makes you good. She grabbed his hand. Please stay. Please. Looking at her hopeful face, Minho felt the last of his doubt dissolve. This child needed him. Her mother wanted him. And he wanted them too. More than he'd wanted anything in his entire life. Okay, he said. I'll stay. Lyra threw herself at him, hugging him so tight he could barely breathe. Really, you promise? Forever? Forever. The claiming ceremony was held a week later. It was formal, filled with Velrathi rituals Minho didn't fully understand, but he stood in the ceremonial hall wearing traditional robes with Lyra on one side and Kaiva on the other, and spoke the words he'd been taught. The Velrathi witnesses watched in silence. Some looked approving, others looked skeptical, but none spoke against it. Not after what Minho had proven in the trial. The key moment came when Kaiva placed a silver band on Minho's wrist. In Velrathi culture, it was both a family bond and a mate bond combined. "With this I claim you," she said formally, "as guardian to my daughter, as mate to myself, as family, now and forever." Minho repeated the words he'd been taught, his voice steady. "I accept the claiming. I bind myself to your family. I will guard your daughter as my own. I will stand beside you as your chosen. I give my life to this bond." Then came the part no one had told him about. Kaiva leaned in and kissed him. It was brief, ceremonial, but it still sent shock through the Velrathi witnesses. Public displays of affection weren't common in their culture. When she pulled back, her eyes held warmth and something deeper. "Welcome to our family, Minho Vastara." Minho Vastara, his new Velrathi name, the Steadfast. Lyra grabbed both their hands, bouncing with excitement. "We're a family now. A real family." Looking at them both, Minho felt something settle in his chest. Peace. Belonging. Home. He had spent his whole life searching for a place to fit. And he'd found it in the most unlikely way possible, with an alien child who needed him, and a warrior woman who chose him. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Minho met other Velrathi families, accepted their congratulations, endured their curious questions about human customs. But mostly he stayed close to Kaiva and Lyra, his new family. Late that night, after Lyra had finally fallen asleep, Kaiva found Minho on a balcony overlooking the station's central garden. "Having second thoughts?" she asked, joining him. "No, just processing." He smiled at her. "I changed my whole life today." "We both did." She stood close enough that their shoulders touched. "I have never taken a mate from another species. Never even considered it possible. But you made me reconsider many things." "Like what?" "Like strength. Like family. Like what truly matters." She turned to face him. "In battle I am decisive, confident, but in this, I find myself uncertain. About us? About how to be what you need. I am a warrior. A commander. I am not skilled in gentle things." Minho took her hand. "You're skilled in what matters. You're loyal. You're honest. You fight for what you believe in. And you love your daughter enough to give her what she needs, even if it's different from what you planned. Is that enough for you?" "It's more than enough," he squeezed her hand. "We'll figure out the rest together. That's what families do, right?" Kaiva smiled. A real sim. The genetic treatments began the day after the claiming ceremony. Minho spent hours in medical, while Velrathi doctors worked to extend his lifespan and strengthen his body, to handle the alien environment he'd be living in. It wasn't painful exactly, but it was strange feeling his cells change at a fundamental level. "The treatments will take months to complete," the doctor explained. "Your lifespan will extend from roughly 80 years to approximately 300, matching Velrathi standards. Your body will become more resistant to disease and injury, but you will still be fundamentally human." "Will I still look human?" "Yes, the changes are internal, not external." The doctor made notes on her datapad. "Though you may notice increased strength and stamina over time." Between treatments, Minho had to learn Velrathi customs, history, military structure, political systems. Kaiva assigned him tutors, but she also taught him herself during quiet evenings. She was patient, which surprised him. He'd expected the legendary warrior commander to be impatient with his slow progress. "You're learning faster than most," she said one night as they reviewed proper protocol for addressing the Velrathi Council. "Some of my officers studied this for years and still make mistakes." "I'm motivated," Minho smiled at her. "Can't embarrass my family. You could never embarrass us." She reached across the table and touched his hand. They were getting more comfortable with small gestures of affection, though Kaiva still sometimes seemed surprised by her own impulses. Not everything was smooth. 3 weeks after the claiming, the backlash began. It started small. Whispers in corridors, pointed looks from Velrathi officers. Then it got bigger. A Velrathi news outlet published an article questioning the legitimacy of a cross-species claiming. They called it a political stunt, a way for Kaiva to gain favor with human allies. The article suggested that Minho was unqualified, that Lyra deserved a real Velrathi guardian, that the High Commander was putting her personal desires above the good of their people. Kaiva was furious. Minho watched her pace their quarters like a caged predator. "They dare question my judgment? My authority?" Her hands clenched. I should challenge the writer to combat. That would just prove their point, Minho said calmly. They're trying to get a reaction from you. They are insulting my mate, my family. I know, and it sucks. He stood and caught her hands, stopping her pacing, but fighting them physically won't solve this. We have to prove them wrong through our actions. Kaiva looked at him, her anger slowly cooling to calculation. You think strategically, like a commander. I think like someone who's been dealing with people underestimating him his whole life. He smiled slightly. Humans aren't impressive on paper. We're weak, slow, fragile. But we're still here, still thriving. You know why? Because we don't fight every battle with fists. Sometimes we fight with patience. I am not patient. I know. That's why you have me. She actually laughed at that. Then she pulled him into an embrace, something she was doing more often now. How did I find you? Luck. Really good luck. But the problems didn't stop with one article. Conservative Velrathi factions began using the claiming as evidence that Kaiva was unfit for command. They argued that she was abandoning tradition, weakening the Velrathi bloodlines, setting a dangerous precedent. On the human side, reactions were mixed too. Some saw it as a triumph of interspecies cooperation. Others accused Minho of abandoning humanity, of selling out for alien power and status. He received messages from old colleagues, some supportive, others angry. One message hurt more than others. It was from a human admiral Minho had once worked for. You were a good soldier once. Now you're just a pet for the aliens, disgraceful. Minho stared at the message for a long time. Then he deleted it. You are troubled again, Kaiva observed. She was getting better at reading his expressions. Just dealing with people who don't understand. There will always be those who do not understand, who fear what is different. She sat beside him. Do you regret your choice? No, never. He meant it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt when people attack it. Then we hurt together, and we stand together. She took his hand. That is what mates do. The real crisis came 6 weeks after the claiming Minho was with Lyra in the education center. The child was working on her psychic control exercises, levitating multiple objects at once. She'd gotten much better, could now handle 6 items without strain. Watch this. She made the objects orbit each other in a complex pattern. I've been practicing. That's amazing, Lyra, Minho smiled. Your mother will be impressed. I want to show her tonight. Can we call her? She's in meetings, but we can send a video. They were recording Lyra's demonstration when the alarms started. Minho's training kicked in immediately. Lyra, to me. Now. The child dropped the objects and ran to his side. What's happening? I don't know. Stay close. He pulled up his data pad, accessing the security feeds. What he saw made his blood run cold. Armed figures were moving through the station, not uniformed soldiers but mercenaries, and they were heading straight for the education center. We need to move. Minho grabbed Lyra's hand and ran for the emergency exit. They made it halfway down the corridor before the attackers appeared. 5 of them, heavily armed, wearing masks. 1 raised a weapon. The child. Hand her over. Minho put himself between Lyra and the attackers. Not happening. We don't want to hurt you, human. Just the girl. Political statement, nothing personal. Everything about this is personal. Minho's mind raced. 5 armed attackers. 1 unarmed human. A terrified child. The odds were terrible, but he'd faced terrible odds before. Lyra, he said quietly. When I move, you run. Emergency shelter 3. Remember where that is? Yes, but no buts. You run and you don't stop until you're safe. Understand? I'm scared, I know. But you're also brave. Now get ready. The attackers moved forward. Minho waited until they were close, then grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed it directly in their faces. The foam and chemicals blinded them temporarily. Run! Lyra ran. Minho heard her footsteps disappearing down the corridor. Good. The attackers recovered quickly. 1 lunged at Minho. He dodged, using the man's momentum to throw him into another attacker. These were professionals, but they'd planned for a Velrathi guard. Strong, powerful, direct. They hadn't planned for a human. Minho fought dirty. He didn't try to overpower them. Instead, he used every trick he'd learned in years of security work. He threw objects to create obstacles. He used the narrow corridor to limit their numbers. He hit pressure points, went for eyes and throats, made every move count. But 5 against 1 was still terrible odds. A weapon discharge caught him in the shoulder. The pain was instant and blinding. He went down. An attacker stood over him, weapon raised. Should have just handed her over. Then the attacker flew backward like he'd been hit by a truck. He slammed into the wall hard enough to dent the metal. Kaiva had arrived. She was terrifying. Her armor gleamed, her weapons ready, her face a mask of cold fury. She moved through the remaining attackers like a force of nature. In under 30 seconds, all 5 were unconscious or incapacitated. Then she was kneeling beside Minho. "Where is Lyra?" "Emergency shelter 3. She's safe." Minho winced. "I made sure." "You're injured. Shoulder wound. I'll live." He tried to sit up and almost passed out from the pain. "Don't move." Kaiva spoke into her communicator, calling for medical and security. Then she looked at Minho and her expression shifted from cold commander to worried mate. "You could have died, but Lyra didn't. That's what matters. You matter." The words came out fierce. "You are my mate, my family. You matter to me." Before Minho could respond, small footsteps echoed in the corridor. Lyra appeared, tears streaming down her face. "I heard the fighting. I was scared." "Is Minho okay?" "I told you to stay in the shelter," Minho said weakly. "You're hurt." Lyra ran to him, her small hands hovering over his wound. "You're bleeding." "I'm okay. Just a scratch." "Liar." But Lyra pressed against his good side, careful not to jostle his injury. "You protected me again. That's my job." "It is more than a job," Kaiva said quietly. "It is who you are." Medical arrived and took Minho away. The shoulder wound required surgery, but the doctor said he'd recover fully. The genetic treatments had already made him heal faster than a normal human. While Minho was in surgery, Kaiva investigated. She discovered that the attack had been orchestrated by the same conservative faction that opposed the claiming. They'd hired mercenaries to kidnap Lyra, planning to use her to force Kaiva to step down from command. It had failed because of one human guard who refused to give up. 2 days later, Kaiva called a meeting of the Velrathi Council. Minho, still recovering, watched from a medical bed via video feed. Lyra sat beside him, holding his hand. Kaiva stood before the council, her bearing commanding. "There are those among us who question my claiming of Minho Park, who say he is weak, unqualified, inappropriate." Her voice rang through the chamber. "I will address these concerns once and for all." She gestured to a display showing security footage. It showed Minho fighting the 5 attackers, buying time for Lyra to escape despite being outnumbered and outgunned. "This is weakness?" Kaiva asked. A man willing to fight 5 armed soldiers to approach 6 months after the attack. Life had settled into something Minho had never experienced before. A rhythm, a routine, a sense of home. The peace talks had concluded successfully. The treaty between humanity and the Velrathi was signed, celebrated, and implemented. Station Osiris-7 was slowly returning to normal operations, no longer the tense diplomatic battleground it had been. Kaiva's delegation was scheduled to return to Velrathi space soon. And this time, Minho would go with them. He stood in what had been his quarters, packing the few possessions he still owned. Most of his old life fit into 2 small bags. It seemed strange that a whole existence could be reduced to so little. Second thoughts? Taiyang appeared in the doorway. His friend had come to the station for a farewell visit. No, just reflecting. Minho held up an old photo from Earth showing him and his mother. She'd died 3 years ago. He wished she could have met Kaiva and Lyra. "She would have been happy for you," Taiyang said, reading his mind. "Your mom always said you needed to find where you belonged. I didn't think it would be with aliens on the other side of the galaxy. Life's funny that way." Taiyang sat on the bed. "You look different, you know. Healthier. Happier. The genetic treatments? Partly. But mostly just, I don't know, having a purpose? Having people who need me?" Minho smiled. "Having a family? Speaking of which, how are things with the scary warrior wife?" "She's not that scary. She challenged the entire Velrathi Council to single combat for you." "Okay, she's a little scary." Minho laughed. "But she's also kind, thoughtful. She cares so deeply about everything even when she pretends not to. And she's trying so hard to understand human affection customs. Last week she brought me flowers because she read it was a human courting gesture. That's adorable. She brought me combat flowers. Literally flowers from a war memorial." Taiyang burst out laughing. "Okay, that's very Velrathi. I didn't have the heart to explain the difference." She looked so proud of herself. They talked for another hour, reminiscing about old jobs, old friends, old times. When Taiyang finally stood to leave, he pulled Minho into a hug. Be happy, brother. You deserve it, you too. Maybe find your own weird alien family. I'll stick with humans for now. Taiyang grinned. We can't all be interstellar pioneers. After he left, Minho finished packing. Tomorrow they'd leave for Velrath, the Velrathi homeworld, a place no human had ever lived before. He'd be the first. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like an adventure. That evening, the three of them had dinner together in Kaiva's quarters. It had become their nightly ritual when Kaiva wasn't in meetings. Family time, Lyra called it. The child was talking excitedly about Velrath. I can't wait to show you the Crystal Gardens. And the Command Academy where Mother trained. And the ocean. Velrath has an ocean? Minho looked at Kaiva in surprise. One, small, created artificially for research purposes. Kaiva's expression was carefully neutral. I may have arranged for living quarters near it. Since you seem to have an obsession with water. Minho felt warmth spread through his chest. She'd done that for him. Because she knew it mattered to him. Thank you, he said softly. It is logical. You will need familiar elements to help with the transition. But her cheeks showed that slight color shift that meant she was pleased. After dinner, Lyra went to bed. She'd started sleeping better since the attack, no longer afraid that Minho would disappear. He tucked her in, a routine they'd developed. Tell me a story? She asked. Earth story or space story? Earth story. About families. So Minho told her about a human tradition called Thanksgiving, about how families gathered together, shared food, and talked about what they were grateful for. What are you grateful for? Lyra asked when he finished. Right now? I'm grateful for you. For your mother. For this weird, unexpected family we've built. He smoothed her hair back. I'm grateful that you threw those building blocks at me on the first day. Lyra giggled. I was testing you, I know. And I apparently passed. You did more than pass. You became my father. She said it simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I love you, Minho. It was the first time she'd said it out loud. Minho felt his throat tighten. I love you too, little one. So much. Forever? Forever. Satisfied, Lyra closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Minho found Kaiva on the balcony overlooking the station's gardens. She stood at the railing, looking out at the artificial trees and flowers, lost in thought. Worried about going home? He asked, joining her. Concerned about bringing you into that world? She didn't look at him. The council accepted our bond, but that does not mean all Velrathi will. You will face prejudice, suspicion. There will be those who see you as weakness. Let them think what they want. I know who I am. You are brave. Foolishly brave sometimes. Now she did turn to face him. But I worry. Velrath is not like this station. It is a warrior culture, harsh, demanding. You will be the only human on the entire planet. I'll have you. I'll have Lyra, that's enough. Kaiva stepped closer. Over the months, she'd become more comfortable with physical affection, though she still approached it like a battle strategy. I am not skilled at this. At being a mate. My first bonding was arranged, political. I cared for my mate, but we were never close, not like... She stopped, struggling with words, not like us. Minho finished gently. Yes, not like us. She took his hands. You have shown me what it means to choose someone, to build something together instead of just fulfilling duty. I find myself wanting things I never wanted before. Like what? To know what you are thinking. To make you smile. To wake beside you and feel grateful instead of just satisfied that duty is fulfilled. She looked almost frustrated. These feelings are inefficient, distracting. They make me weak. They don't make you weak. They make you human. He paused. Well, not literally human, but you know what I mean. She actually smiled at that. Then, in a gesture that still surprised him every time, she leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. It was a Velrathi gesture of deep intimacy, usually reserved for mates in private. I am grateful you agreed to the claiming, she said quietly. I am grateful you chose us. I'm grateful you chose me first. He wrapped his arms around her. She fit against him perfectly despite their physical differences. We're going to be okay, Kaiva. All three of us. We're a team. A family. Yes. A family. They stood together in comfortable silence. Minho thought about how far he'd come. 6 months ago, he'd been a lonely contractor taking what he thought was a simple guard job. Now he was a father, a mate, part of something bigger than himself. The next day, they boarded the Velkorath, Kaiva's command ship. The vessel was massive, elegant, built for both war and exploration. The crew watched Minho with curiosity as he came aboard, but they showed respect. Their commander had claimed this human. That made him family. Lyra ran through the corridors excitedly, showing Minho everything. This is the observation deck. This is the training room. This is where Mother commands from. The command center was impressive. Screens showed star charts, tactical displays, communication feeds. Kaiva sat in the commander's chair, and for a moment Minho saw her as others did. Powerful, imposing, a leader of thousands. Then she saw him and Lyra watching, and her expression softened. She gestured them forward. Come, I want to show you something. She pulled up a star chart showing their route home. This is our path to Velrath, 4 weeks of travel. But I have adjusted our course slightly. She pointed to a blue-green planet. This is Earth, your homeworld. We will pass close enough to visit, if you wish. Minho stared at the planet on the screen. Earth. Home. He hadn't been back in 5 years. You would take us to Earth? You should see your home one last time before we begin our new life. And Lyra should see the oceans you described. Kaiva met his eyes. Family means honoring where we come from even as we build where we are going. Lyra bounced excitedly. Real Earth oceans. Can we, Minho, please? Looking at both of them, his alien family who had crossed every boundary to be with him, Minho felt something settle in his heart. A final piece clicking into place, yeah, he said. Let's go see Earth together. 3 weeks later, they stood on a beach on Earth's Pacific coast. Lyra ran through the sand, screaming with joy as waves crashed around her feet. Kaiva stood beside Minho, watching their daughter play. It is loud, Kaiva observed. And wet. That's the ocean for you. Lyra loves it. So do I. Minho took her hand. Thank you for this. For bringing us here. We are family. Your joy is my joy, she squeezed his hand. Though I do not understand the appeal of water in such large quantities. They watched Lyra discover shells and chase seabirds. A Velrathi child experiencing Earth for the first time, bridging 2 worlds through wonder and laughter. Later, back on the ship, they resumed their journey to Velrath. Minho sat in the quarters they now shared, Lyra asleep in the next room, Kaiva reviewing reports beside him. This was his life now. Strange. Unexpected. Perfect. Minho, Kiva set aside her datapad. Do you ever regret it? Leaving your old life? He thought about the question seriously. Sometimes I wonder what might have been if I'd said no, where I'd be now, what I'd be doing, and,